Karen's birthday was just around the corner, and I was genuinely looking forward to it. She's more than my sister. She's my best friend. So helping her plan the party felt like second nature to me. We picked the wine together, tested cake flavors, even argued over napkin colors like it was some royal wedding. I loved every second of it. I mean, birthdays are sacred in our family, and Karen's? Always a big deal. But every time I brought it up to Ethan, his mood shifted. It was like flipping a switch. He'd suddenly become distant, scrolling aimlessly through his phone or mumbling something about work. And then came that weird sentence that stopped me in my tracks. I don't think we should go. Maybe she doesn't want us there. What? That didn't make any sense. Karen had always liked Ethan. She'd never said a single bad thing about him. In fact, she often joked that he was the calm to my chaos. I tried to brush it off at first, thinking maybe he was just tired or stressed. But something about the way he avoided eye contact told me there was more going on than he was willing to admit. As the days passed, I couldn't shake the feeling that Ethan was off. It wasn't just his tone. It was the way he avoided the topic entirely. Every time I mentioned the party, he'd change the subject, pick up his phone, or pretend he hadn't heard me. And when I pushed, he'd get defensive, like I was accusing him of something. But all I wanted was to celebrate my sister's birthday with the people we both loved. I finally sat him down at the kitchen table, looked him in the eye, and said, "We're going, Ethan. She's your sister-in-law. Don't make this weird." He sighed, long and slow, like the weight of the world was on his chest. Then he nodded. But it wasn't relief I saw in his face. It was something else. A flicker of hesitation. Almost like fear. And for a split second I wondered, fear of what? Still, I tried to let it go. I convinced myself I was overthinking everything, turning shadows into ghosts. Relationships go through rough patches, right? People get moody. But even as I told myself that, something deep down kept tugging at me. That instinct, that little voice inside, whispering that something just wasn't right. The morning of the party, I watched Ethan move around the house like a man headed for a courtroom. He wasn't angry. He was anxious, edgy, jumping every time his phone buzzed. I asked if he was okay, and he forced a smile that didn't even reach his eyes. "Just tired," he muttered. But the bags under his eyes told a different story. He wasn't tired. He was unraveling. When we got into the car, I tried to lighten the mood, played some music, cracked a few jokes about how Karen was probably already half a glass deep. Normally, he'd laugh along with me. But this time, nothing. Just fingers drumming nervously against the steering wheel and eyes glued to the road like he was driving straight into something he didn't want to face. As we pulled up to Karen's house, I felt a familiar warmth. The porch lights were glowing. I could already hear muffled laughter and clinking glasses through the door. But next to me, Ethan went still. Completely still. I didn't know it then, but everything was about to shift. Whatever storm had been building inside him, it was about to break open. The car hadn't even cooled off yet when I reached for the door handle, still smiling, still caught in that pre-party buzz. I was ready to celebrate, to hug Karen, to laugh with people I hadn't seen in months. But Ethan wasn't moving. He sat stiffly in the driver's seat, eyes darting toward the house like it held something terrifying. His jaw was tight. His hand clenched the gear shift like he might throw it in reverse at any second. "Come on," I said gently, nudging him. "We're already here." But he didn't answer. He was staring, no, scanning, the front windows. And then suddenly, his whole body tensed like he'd seen a ghost. "We can't go in," he said, voice low and sharp. "We have to leave, now." I blinked at him, stunned, trying to make sense of the urgency in his voice. "What are you talking about?" Before I could get another word out, he grabbed my arm. Not violently, but firm enough to make it clear. He wasn't asking. He was pulling me back toward the car, eyes wide with panic. It didn't feel like fear of a party. It felt like fear of exposure. I stumbled after him, completely confused and humiliated, wondering what the hell had just happened. Back in the car, I sat frozen, seatbelt still unbuckled, heart pounding with confusion and a growing sense of dread. Ethan didn't look at me. He just started the engine and pulled away from the curb like we were fleeing a crime scene. I turned to him, searching his face for answers. Ethan, what is going on? My voice cracked between frustration and embarrassment. But he kept his eyes on the road, lips pressed into a thin line, like silence would protect him from whatever truth was clawing to the surface. I glanced back at Karen's house shrinking behind us in the rearview mirror, the sound of our missed welcome echoing in my chest. I could still picture her inside, laughing, probably wondering why we were late. I wanted to scream. I wanted to get out of the car and run back to the front door. But my body stayed frozen, tethered to his panic like it might explain something I didn't yet understand. When my phone buzzed with a text from Karen, "Hey, are you guys lost? Everyone's asking about you?" I stared at it for a long time. Ethan finally spoke, voice thin and distant. "Just tell her something came up." That was it. No explanation, no apology. Just another wall he put up between us, and suddenly it felt like I was married to a stranger. That night, I barely said a word. Ethan went straight to the shower like he needed to rinse something off. Not sweat, not dirt, something heavier. I sat on the edge of our bed, replaying every moment in my mind like a scene from a movie I didn't understand. The window, his panic, the way he yanked me away like danger was waiting on the other side of that front door. None of it made sense, but it felt deliberate, calculated. When he crawled into bed later, he didn't touch me. No goodnight kiss, no explanation. Just a mumbled, "I was overwhelmed," before turning his back. And I lay there in the dark, feeling a cold emptiness stretch between us like a wall we'd both helped build, brick by silent brick. I kept staring at the ceiling, haunted by the way he'd looked through that window. Not just afraid, but caught. I didn't know what it was yet, but deep down, something inside me had shifted. And even though I didn't have the pieces, I already knew the truth was waiting for me, somewhere behind that glass. Something broke inside me that night. I couldn't pretend anymore. Not after the look on Ethan's face at Karen's door. Not after the way he pulled me away from my own sister's party like it was a trap. So when he left for work the next morning, I sat at the kitchen table, hands trembling, and opened his laptop. I didn't want to become that woman, the one who snoops through her husband's life, but I wasn't digging for control. I was digging for truth. At first, everything looked normal. Work emails, old receipts, a couple of vacation folders, but then I found the private browser history, the hidden message folder, the name that jumped out like a slap to the face, Lena, Karen's friend, the one who always laughed a little too loud at Ethan's jokes, the one who showed up early to help Karen decorate, wearing perfume that lingered a little too long. I clicked, and what I found turned my stomach inside out. Weeks, months, of messages, of plans, of memories, photos too. Lena calling him babe. Ethan telling her he missed her smile. It was like reading someone else's life, only it was mine. Or it used to be. I couldn't breathe. My hands hovered above the keyboard, unsure whether to scroll further or throw the whole laptop across the room. There it was, plain as day. Proof. Not suspicions, not paranoia. Proof that the man I shared a home, a bed, a life with, had been living a lie. And with her of all people. Someone I'd welcomed into my family. Someone who toasted at my wedding and hugged me like a friend. I felt this eerie calm settle over me, like my body didn't know whether to cry or scream, so it just shut down. But inside, the storm was rising. My marriage was a farce. And now, every smile, every kiss, every promise, it all felt like it belonged to strangers I couldn't recognize. I sat there in silence, hours ticking by like ghosts in the walls, trying to figure out what hurt more, the betrayal, or the fact that they thought I'd never find out. But I wasn't going to fall apart. Not for him. Not for her. I wiped my tears, closed the laptop, and stood up. Because if Ethan thought he could humiliate me in silence, he was about to learn that I don't do silence. I do impact. That night, I laid next to him in bed, pretending to sleep, listening to his steady breathing like it was a lullaby for fools. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I wasn't ready to give him the satisfaction of a meltdown, a scream, a scene he could twist into a moment of weakness or just a mistake. No. I wanted precision. I wanted control. And more than anything, I wanted them both to feel the sharp edge of the truth when it finally cut through. So I started planning. Not out of bitterness, out of clarity. I thought about the brunch Karen was hosting in a few days. Same people, same smiles, same lies. Lena would be there, clinking glasses and laughing like she hadn't stolen something sacred. Ethan would be by my side, playing the faithful husband. It would be the perfect stage. And I was done being the quiet one in the audience. Because now I had the script. I had the receipts. And when the time came, I would deliver the kind of performance no one would ever forget. The morning of the brunch, I took my time getting ready. Not because I cared about appearances, but because I wanted to feel composed. I slipped into a soft, cream-colored dress. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic, just elegant, understated, like the calm before a storm. I tied my hair back, swiped on a quiet red lipstick, and looked at myself in the mirror with eyes that no longer carried confusion, only purpose. Karen greeted me at the door, warm and bubbly, completely unaware of the wreckage I carried in my handbag. "Where's Ethan?" she asked, hugging me tight. "He had something come up," I answered smoothly. Not a lie, just a preview. Inside, the house was buzzing, laughter bouncing off the walls. Clinking glasses, the smell of fresh pastries, Lena's unmistakable voice cutting through the noise like nails on glass. I made the rounds, smiled, thanked people for their compliments, complimented Lena's earrings, how bold of her to wear red. And when Karen stood up with a champagne flute in hand and invited everyone to toast to friendship and love, I knew the moment had come. I stepped forward, calm as ever, my glass raised high. "All of you look so beautiful today," I began, smiling gently as every eye turned to me. I wasn't sure I'd be able to make it, but something told me this was a gathering I shouldn't miss. I let the silence hang just long enough. People chuckled politely, sipping their drinks, expecting a sentimental story or maybe a funny memory about Karen. But that's not what they got. I took a slow breath and kept my voice even. Before we go any further, I'd like to thank two people here. My husband, Ethan, and one of Karen's dearest friends. A few heads tilted, some eyebrows raised. Lena looked up from her mimosa, confused. "You two have taught me something I never quite understood until now, what betrayal really looks like when it's dressed in familiar faces." Then I reached into my bag and pulled out a tidy stack of papers. No theatrics, no yelling, just the truth. Black and white, screenshots, dates, texts. I walked over and placed them right in front of Lena, whose face drained of color so quickly it was almost theatrical. Ethan wasn't there to defend her, or himself, and that was by design. The room went dead silent. You could hear nothing but the quiet fizz of champagne bubbles and the soft creak of someone shifting uncomfortably in their chair. Lena stared down at the papers like they might catch fire. Karen's mouth hung open, stunned, her eyes bouncing between me and the friend she once trusted like a sister. No one knew what to say, and that was the beauty of it. There was nothing left to say. The evidence spoke louder than any accusation ever could. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't give them the satisfaction of watching me unravel. I simply looked at Karen and said, "I'm sorry it had to be at your table, but I figured the truth deserved real witnesses." Then I turned toward the door, my heels clicking softly against the hardwood, each step sealing the end of one life and the beginning of another. Behind me, voices finally started to rise. Frantic whispers, shocked gasps, the rustle of betrayal rippling through the room. But I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I'd already delivered the gift no one saw coming, and now it was time to unwrap something for myself. Freedom. Weeks passed, but Ethan kept trying. Voicemails filled with half-hearted apologies, text messages that swung between guilt and desperation, each one a little more pathetic than the last. He even sent flowers once. White lilies. I laughed when I saw them. Funerals get lilies. And that's exactly what this was. The burial of a lie dressed up as love. But I never responded. Not once. I didn't owe him closure. I didn't owe him comfort. What I owed was to myself. And I was finally giving that woman the attention she had long been denied. I filed the divorce papers quietly, efficiently, like clearing a space in a closet that had been cluttered for years. No mess, no drama, just release. Karen stood by me through every step. She was furious at first, heartbroken by what her so-called friend had done. But then, something shifted between us. We got closer, stronger, like the fire had burned away all the surface noise and left only truth. And Lena, she vanished from our world without a word. No calls, no excuses. Just silence, the kind that tells you everything you need to know. Freedom didn't come all at once. It arrived in small, quiet moments. Like the first morning I woke up and didn't check my phone for his name. Or the first time I laughed, really laughed, without hearing his voice in the back of my head. I took long walks, bought fresh flowers for no one but myself, started cooking again, just for the joy of it, not to impress, not to please, just because I could. There was a stillness now in my life. Not empty, but peaceful. And in that peace, I started to rediscover pieces of myself I hadn't realized I'd lost. The woman who danced in the kitchen with messy hair. The one who read poetry before bed. The one who trusted her gut. She was still there, buried under years of compromise, but never truly gone. One afternoon, I packed a small bag, drove to the beach, and just sat there for hours, watching the waves crash, letting the wind tangle through my hair, letting the old life float out with the tide. And in that quiet moment, with the sun warming my skin, I realized I wasn't healing to become who I used to be. I was healing to become someone stronger. I took a photo that day. Nothing dramatic, just my bare feet in the sand, a sliver of ocean, the hem of a linen dress fluttering in the breeze. I posted it with a caption that said everything without saying too much. Some birthdays are worth missing, others become the day you're born again. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't have to. The people who needed to understand would feel every word like a stone to the chest. The comments came pouring in. Old friends, distant cousins, women I hadn't spoken to in years, all saying the same thing. This is strength. But it wasn't about strength. It was about returning. Coming back to myself after being dimmed for too long. And now that I was here, I wasn't going to fade ever again. So I smiled into the horizon, not because life was perfect, but because I finally understood what freedom tasted like. It's salt in the air, wind in your hair, and not having to explain your joy to anyone. That was my real birthday gift. And I gave it to myself.